Hi everyone, and welcome to the second webinar in our Life of a Color series. Today we're going to be talking about color specification. Presenting once again is Thomas Meeker, a 3D solution architect at X-Rite. I'm Robert Grotans, the Global Technical Marketing Manager, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. If you have any questions at any time during this webinar, please feel free to submit them in the space provided, and we will follow up with you after this webinar. This webinar will also be recorded, and you'll receive a link tomorrow so that you can review the webinar again at your convenience. So with that, I will turn it over to Thomas to get things started.
Thank you so much, Robert, and thank you everybody for joining this webinar. As Robert mentioned, today's is the second in a series of four webinars that are about the life of a color. And today we will be talking about color specification. So I am going to introduce again what the entire webinar series is about, and then also a recap of the last webinar so that people can get caught up if it's been a while since they saw the last one. So the color workflow involves, we've broken it down into 4 steps. We have the first one, which is the first one in the series called inspiration and ideation. Today we'll be talking about color specification. And then later, Tim Mao will be telling us about pre-production, formulation, and then final production. So just a recap of the last webinar about inspiration. We chose a case study here, and you'll probably recognize this toy. I think everybody probably had this at one point in their lives, which is a child's ring tower toy. So we are going to take this and choose our color palette based on a seasonally inspired version for this iconic toy. So one place that I love going is northern Michigan, and you'll notice the beautiful fall colors of northern Michigan, and that is what I decided to use as my inspiration for this palette. So here's our palette here, pulled from this image, and you'll be seeing this throughout the process. So the last slide, or the last thing I discussed in the inspiration side of this is, so now that we've designed our seasonally inspired toy, now we need to figure out what we want to deliver in the specification to the manufacturer and the people downstream that'll be working with these. So what we've got here, the first one is concept image. So if you saw the last webinar, you'll recognize the image on the left. This is a 3D rendering of our design. So having made decisions about what we want to do as far as the color palette, the order of these, and texture and things like that, this is the final decided design. And now it's time to specify and share this with the other groups in this process. So one of the other things that we may want to specify or show is how the materials react with different lighting conditions. Well, in this, on the left here, what you see is our physical X-Rite Spectralite QC. This is our quality control lighting booth that is capable of doing different lighting conditions so that you can view the materials under different lighting conditions. Well, not only can we do this in the QC part of it, but wouldn't it be great if we could also do this early on to see how these materials are interacting with the different lighting conditions. So on the right-hand side, on the bottom, you're seeing this is actually the 3D CAD for our Spectralite QC, in which I've added cameras and lighting to mimic the physical version of it. So we can start to look at these materials and this object, this designed object under the different lighting conditions. So first of all, we'll take a look at the physical one, and this gives you an idea. This is from our FOCA training of the different lighting conditions with our color checker. as the object in the booth. Not only can we do this physically, but we can in fact do this virtually as well. So using the 3D CAD as well as setting up the correct lighting and camera to mimic the real world, we were able to, these are all 3D renderings of this object in different lighting conditions. So this just helps with communicating to the other groups what the desired look is for the final product. The next thing that we may use to specify, or we most definitely would use to specify, are the Pantone colors. So this is another way for us to specify the color. And also what we've done here is given all of the colors names. So Pantone sometimes has their own names, but what helps with naming these is it really helps with the communication between the groups. So instead of somebody that I'm working with saying, oh, we really need to change Pantone 2222, and have to go, oh yeah, I got to reference that in my book. Now that we've given a name, now we have a great way of communicating across the different teams working on this project. And just as a reminder, we did choose the color Epiphany as the color to work with throughout this process. So this will be referenced a few more times in this presentation, and then will be the focus of Tim Mao's presentation coming up in the third and fourth parts of this series. So not only do we have Pantone to communicate, but we also have two different data formats, which are proprietary X-Rite formats. The first one is CXF, which you may be familiar with, which is an ISO standard, and is used for communicating color digitally. The AXF is kind of like the evolution of the CXF in that it's a full appearance communication, or way of communicating our material appearance digitally. And I'll go into a little bit more about the differences between the two and what AXF is adding on top of the CXF that really makes us a robust file format and package to deliver specification information. So this is a slide from Tim's presentation in which he did measurements of and formulation of the different colors that we chose for our palette. And you'll notice things like on top, you've got the lab values and also the wavelength percentages, things like that. All of this information is incredibly important and information that would be enclosed within a CXF file. So a company may have the ability to read in these CXF files, and these would be incredibly helpful to share with those teams. The AXF, or the appearance exchange format, allows you to also share that same information, but also the ability to do visualization. So we can actually look at these colors, these materials, in a visualizer, which you'll see on the right, which is inside of our Pantora software. It's an OpenGL visualization tool or viewing tool. So inside of this AXF, we're also going to have not only the color information, but information about the normal, so texture information, also roughness having to do with that texture, Fresnel values. So we're just adding on top of this information to help in communicating the goals of our materials and our color specification. One of the really powerful things, one of the many powerful things inside the AXF is also the ability to attach metadata. So you'll see here that I've put together some of the metadata information where we're calling out things like this is Pantone. It came from the Pantone Plastics series. It gives you the number. We're working because all of the Pantone plastic chips have a textured and a smooth surface. We're delineating that this is a smooth version or part of that sample. Who was the creator? When was it created? Where was it created? and then what is the Pantone reference number for that in a coding. So it'll also tell you information about how was it measured, and what version was used, what settings were used. So this can hold as much information or as little information as you like. This is expandable, it's customizable, so it could be company specific or it could be a more generic setup. That is up to the user and who they're working with. So it's a very powerful tool inside the AXF. Also, what we have inside the AXF is that we call it the semantic structure, because it really is like a package of information. So inside of here, we're already looking at the color specifications, the device specifications. What are the primary colors if it's doing a material that has multiple colors? Are we using multiple devices? Did we use one of our multi-angles? Did we use our TAC7 device? What illuminants were used? All of this information can be held within inside of this AXF format. So, and then when we look over here to more of the material information, so moving beyond just the color, we've got the metadata, which I just pointed out, and then other types of representation. So was this spatially varying BRDF as a material, which the TAC7 is capable of measuring? Is it a car paint, a metallic paint? These are different types of representations of materials. And then, of course, the other resources that were used or measured, like the color spectrum, and maybe even there are some attached images, thumbnails, things like that that could be used to share with the other teams. So we kind of consider this like a node tree architecture. It's based on this HDF5 file format, but picture it as like a PDF with all the resources held inside of it, whether it's fonts and things like that. This is just holding all of the information about the material, which expands the capabilities of sharing these with the other teams that are going to be working on the formulation and production. And then finally, because not everybody has a viewing software or a rendering software, we do also provide a free viewer for which is our Pantora free viewer that allows users to be able to view the AXF. So if there is actually measured material information, they can use this as a way of viewing the materials. They can open the AXFs in the library here under the materials tab. You have an objects tab, which allows you to change out the different objects. You see a number of them down here. And you also have the ability to change the lighting condition. So anything from these high dynamic range images or environmental images that can be used. There's a light booth one there, which also includes just a point light, which is great for metallic and car paint finishes. So the other aspect of this is you can also get access to the metadata in the properties tab. So all of that information can then be digested by this viewer to share amongst the team. So you don't have to have your own visualization tool. We provide one for you as well if you would like to use that in your workflow. So with that, thank you. I hope that this was informative and useful for you. And here's some information on how to contact us. And we look forward to seeing you in the follow-up third and fourth version of this series. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Thomas. So that wraps up today's webinar. If you have any questions, we will leave about 30 more seconds for you to go ahead and submit those. We will follow up with any questions that you submit after this webinar. Again, a recording of this webinar will also be sent out. Finally, you'll see a polling question displayed shortly. If you are interested in speaking to someone, feel free to answer it once it comes up, and we'll be sure to get you in touch with the correct person. So I just want to say thanks again, and please join us next time when we have a new presenter, Tim Mao, talking about formulation.